Hello everyone, it is I, Ryan, also known as the Lovebat. So here I am once again in the seat of Magic the Gathering Arena, and we're going to get going with yet another one of the draft videos today. Recently I've been playing a little bit of my Dragon Power deck, sort of modified from the video that I made for it about a year or so ago, before it ran out of the standard format with the cards that I use for that. But been having some fun with that. Got some gold with my Dragon Power deck in the historic format. And we're going to go ahead and do another Phyrexia All Will Be One draft. I think I'm going to do a Premier draft one more time before doing another sort of draft that's best of 3 format instead of best of 1. Best of 1 usually will end up giving you a better chance to get enough gems to be self-sustaining, because you don't have to do a clean sweep to be able to get enough gems to reliably be able to keep on doing draft videos or things like that, if you're low on gems or gold or things like that. In best of 3, you have to usually have a clean sweep going 3-0 against your opponents to get enough gems to be sort of self-sustaining. 2 out of 3 usually isn't going to cut it in best of 3, so I'm just going to go for a best of 1 Premier draft here and see how we do. I doubt it's going to go ahead and take long to find other players to fill up these slots here, so I don't know if I'm going to need to pause or not. Yep, looks like they're filling up in no time. Don't think that we're going to really have any sort of wait here compared to videos for formats that are a bit older. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive in here for our second Phyrexia All Will Be One draft. Let's see what's in store for us now. From what I've seen of other YouTubers and Magic the Gathering players on Arena, this is a very fast format, as I learned in my first draft, where if you aren't able to get some early things out, it can be trouble. So Archfiend of the Dross. This is an interesting card. It's a very, very powerful, but if you're not in oil sort of type decks, like with blue-black or maybe red-black, then you could end up losing the game. But on the other hand, it's just a big fat creature that you can get out for 4 mana and do lots of things with. So could be worth first picking here. Evolving Adaptive, from what I've seen and read the card, this is very good for any oil counter deck. You can proliferate and just get some more +1/+1 sort of oil counters on it, essentially, which might be the better pick. Lower curve. This thing can lose you the game. It's more likely to wheel because it's not going to be great in every deck. This is going to be great in green-black proliferate, maybe oil counters or poison counters. Annihilating Glare is very good removal, and Ossification is great white removal. But yeah, I'm okay taking Evolving Adaptive there. It seems like a good first pick, even if you just have lots of proliferate in your deck. Monument of Perfection, what does this do? Search wide for basic sphere or locust land card. Okay, so you can fish up land cards to fix for mana, and then you can have it become... Okay, so you have to have a bunch of different lands. This is more of a constructed card with lots of land types that you can fish up. Okay, so this is an equipment, red-white sort of equipment deck kind of synergy. Then Razor Paladin, I'm going to select that because this seems just good for lots of decks. Annihilating Glare is maybe better and sort of green-black, sort of lots of small creatures, and you can sacrifice one of them to get some removal. But this is going to be good. Even if you're not in a toxic deck, it's still good. It can fish up, say, an Evolving Adaptive and get it back onto the field, or any other low-curve creatures. And this is a good, decent curve topper. And if you're in a green-black proliferate deck, then having both toxic and oil counters can go together decently well, I would think. Well, we're getting back a lot of Annihilating Glares, so like if we can get some tokens going, then maybe if we wheel one of the Annihilating Glares, then maybe if we get some creature token generators, then Annihilating Glare can still be pretty awesome removal. You just sacrifice like a 1/1 token, and you're in pretty good shape. Resistant Skywarden is pretty good. It's good in a variety of decks. It could be good in an equipment deck where you can give it extra power and be a menace creature at the same time, so that could be pretty good. Tamiyo's Logbook, what does this do? You draw some cards, and it goes well in like the blue-white artifact decks. You can draw cards, and you can do it cheaper if you have artifacts out. This is a pretty good one in sort of blue, oil, blue, green, maybe even blue-black oil type decks. But all in all, still a decent blocker. This is also good for the artifact decks. Thirsting Roots, good for fixing. But I'm good just taking the removal here. And we get a very good pickup here with Death Touch, Toxic, and it goes well with the Annihilating Glare. You can sacrifice it later on to just kill something if they don't want to attack into it. Or you can go ahead and attack in with this. They don't block it, and then you can Annihilating Glare to kill a creature with 1 mana. So I'm definitely okay taking that. We have another Annihilating Glare, so they're passing up all the Annihilating Glares, whoever's ahead of us in the draft here. So we could end up wheeling one of them, I would assume, if it's being passed along. This could be good in like a black-white Toxic deck, which we could still definitely be in. We're not really tied to green at all with the Evolving Adaptive with oil counters. Toxic looks like it's more of an open archetype, but we're going to take the low curve Skull Dweller, or what is it? Skull Dweller, yeah. Alright, so we have a green sort of go wide, go in there with a bunch of buffed up creatures. And then you can get a bunch of poison counters on your opponent. That's not too shabby, but it is a lot of mana, so you have to use it as more of a curve topper for when you have like 3 or more creatures out there, maybe with some creature tokens. Blightbelly Rat is pretty decent for the toxic value here, and it's pretty good low curve. Hexgold Slash is maybe the best card here, and I could just go ahead and take it because red-black could be a thing that we do, along with Cacophony Scamp. You can proliferate with this one. But I'm going to go and take the removal, and I can probably still get some good black cards on the wheel here because they've been passed around quite a bit. Alright, so we get rewarded with a Volt Charge, which is more removal. Goes well in any deck. We can do it in a Toxic deck. Red has more oil counters than Toxic creatures, but anything that has Proliferate in it, that means you can give more poison counters once the opponent already has at least 1 poison counter. So we're not really tied to green or red, but I think that Void Charge is probably the best. Infectious Bite is also good in green-black sort of poison counters, but Volt Charge, maybe Proliferate, can still do pretty good in a poison deck. Okay, so we have some blue coming around. That's not uncommon, but none of them really fit into any of our archetypes that we're going into. This is more of an artifact deck. This is just more of a general tempo card. And then this is just a general looter flyer. This is more of an artifact deck card as well. So I think we just go with another Annihilating Glare, and we just prioritize smaller, low-curve creatures and token generators to sacrifice. And just have some good removal on our deck if we're going red-black, for example. Okay, so Phyrexian Atlas can ramp as well as fix. And it can have some synergies with poison counters. Yeah, this has Death Touch, and it can be decent if you get Toxic on it with some other abilities. But it's a lot of mana. This can actually be decent to kill some X1 creatures and proliferate poison counters. So we can just go with Whisper of the Dross here as maybe the safest pick. Alright, Annihilating Glare and Hexgold Slash on the wheel. I mean, if red and black is flowing, I'm just going to keep on taking red and black. We have lots of removal, not very many creatures, but it's possible that it just weren't very many creatures in red and black in these packs. So yeah, I'll take the Hexgold Slash, and Annihilating Glares are passing to us in that first sort of pack, so we're probably going to get some more if there's any more coming around. I guess this is like a random 3-drop that we could take for our deck. What's this do? Okay, so that's not really going to go in our deck. We'll just take the random 3-drop and maybe we play it, maybe we don't. What does this do? This is oil counters, and then you can loot with it. That's not too bad. So at minimum, you can loot twice with this thing, so that's not too bad. It can kind of stave off some of the aggressive decks. This on the wheel isn't too bad. 1 drop with haste that you can occasionally get some extra damage in on the opponent if you tap it remove an oil counter. You can proliferate to give it more oil counters. We'll just take the random white card here. And Shrapnel Slinger is playable in red. I think that we're squarely in red-black right now, so I'm going to get rid of this. Bloated Contaminator is great, but green doesn't really seem to be flowing as much as red and black, so I think I'm just going to stick with red and black because those were really wheeling for us. This is the best card in the pack, I would probably say. 3-drop that can get in toxic damage, and it is worth splashing in a toxic deck, which we could be in. Chittering Skitterling, you can sacrifice an artifact or creature, so if we have a bunch of small creatures, we can sacrifice them to draw some cards so we get some poison counters in. This is great with Proliferate. We have a couple ways to proliferate. I think we have one, two. We have 2 ways to proliferate. This is probably the safer pick. We can end up getting some Toxic going, and it's a decent blocker against aggro decks. And we get rewarded with another one. I'm okay taking another one there. 3/3 Menace is also pretty good, but I think that the 1/4 blocker, as well as being able to get prioritized poison counters in black and proliferate all around, can be pretty good. Again, there are some green cards in here, but you know, not as many of them that I would want to pivot into green for. And then we have a random sort of mythic rare here that can't really splash because it's in red, or doesn't use red mana, so it's one of our main sort of card types. We don't have really the ability to splash for it. If you're in green, you could with like Thirsting Roots and some artifacts that could splash for it. But otherwise, it's going to be hard to play in limited, more of a constructed card. So we're going to go and take the safer pick with the Chittering Skitterling. Okay. More black is flowing here, as well as plenty of red with Volt Charge and Hexgold Halberd, which is better than the red-white equipment, but it's still going to be great with First Strike and Trample on any sort of random creature. You know, a random Nimrazer Paladin, or you could put it on like your 1-drop, make it a 3/1 First Strike Trample creature. What does this Grisquito do? Flying, enters battlefield with 2 oil counters. And +1/+1 each oil counter on it. Okay. So it could go in a sacrifice deck, okay, but I think that this one can be good. It's very versatile. You can get your opponent to sacrifice creatures with it. It's instant speed. So it's probably the safest pick here. More versatile than the another one of the, Void Charges, which is still 3 mana removal. Okay, so Copperline Gorge could be okay if we wanted to splash some green, which there are some toxic cards in green that we might want to splash. And there's nothing really in red or black that we would want to play here. There was that 4/4, a 3-mana 4/4 toxic trample creature that it's probably not going to wheel. It's way too good, but there might be some other green creatures that we could get that might be worth going into green for. So I think we're just going to go ahead and take the land. There's nothing else that's really for us in this previous pack. Let's see, it's a 3-mana Death Touch Toxic. Maybe not what I want to splash for. What does this do? Toxic 2? Okay, so this would be good in a toxic deck, but it's more green-black, splashing white, so I'm not sure if I can take this, because I can't really reliably get white mana right now. Yeah, I think Anoint with Affliction is going to be okay here. You can... The curve in this format is generally fairly low, so this is going to be instant speed removal a lot of the time. Okay, so we got mana fixing here. I'm happy taking that. Magmatic Sprinter is okay for an aggro plan, but you have to keep playing it out over and over again. So this is only good if you want to keep on putting oil counters on a bomb sort of card. Otherwise, it's just not all that great as a mana sink. So I'll just go with the fixing here and never look back here. I think it's still going to be a good pick for us. Okay, so we have a Molten Rebuke, maybe more of a sideboard card because it's 5 mana removal, but you can choose both and get a 2-for-1 effect going with that. The Copper Longlegs is okay defending against aggro decks, but if the opposing creature has Death Touch, then Copper Longlegs is pretty bad, as we saw in our first draft. I'll take the Phyrexian Atlas, and maybe if something bomby comes up, we can splash for it. Maybe if it's in green, we can reliably splash for something. That's a white land. I don't really want that. Okay, so this is another Engraver. I think the Molten Rebuke is something we can take now. It's pricey removal, but removal is good. There are some equipment decks in here, some strong equipments, such as the one that gives like protection from red and green. If someone has that, then this becomes very good. Nothing too much in us. Nothing too much in it here for us. I guess we can take the Axiom Engraver. This is another looter, an early blocker for us. And then we get the Furnace Punisher back on the wheel. I think it's still pretty good for us. 3/3 Menace baseline is still pretty good. So I think that that's still a pretty good card for us. Got some red on the wheel. Are any of them any good for us? This is oil counter heavy. Oil counter heavy. We'll just go ahead and take the random equipment 4-drop here. And then I guess throw a possibility might be okay. We can maybe just discard something that we don't need, like maybe a Phyrexian Atlas if we don't need the ramp or fixing. And we'll just take the random red card that we probably don't play. I mean, we do have a decent amount of oil counter type things. We already have, you know, some ways to take advantage of oil counters, but I'm not sure if that's really where you want to be in red-black, so... Vindictive Flamestalker. Whenever cast on a creature spell, put an oil counter on it, and then sacrifice it. Okay, so this is an incentive to be in oil counters. I guess this is actually a good reason to be in oil counters. So, I mean, we have a good amount of non-creature spells in this deck so far. 10 right now, so... I mean, this is a decent card. You can go ahead and just reset your hand, basically, if you want to with this. Annihilating Glare would be good too, but I think I'm going to try and see if I can make this work. And if I have a reason to play some oil counters, then I at least have some payoffs for it. Sheldred the Apocalypse. Okay, this is a bomb card. The person that's right ahead of us here must not be in black, otherwise they would have taken this for sure. So 4 or 5 Death Touch for 4 mana by itself is great. Then whenever you draw a card, you can just get your life back, and then you can drain out the opponent if they draw a bunch of cards. Awesome card. Other cards in here, Nahiri Sacrifice could be okay if you have, like, I don't know, you have like equipment type cards in it. You can make good use of that by sacrificing artifacts of a high mana cost. Okay, so red and black are kind of iffy here. This is situational removal. Does add a poison counter, but usually it's not going to be as great because the curve is fairly low in this format. Could splash for the Paladin of Predation and just get a big toxic creature. We have some ways to splash for it. We have green there, we have green there. I mean, we could splash for it and try and make it work. It is a high mana creature anyway, so we'll see if we get enough fixing to make it work. Treasure tokens or things like that aren't really a thing in this format, so splashing can be a bit difficult. We do have some ways to proliferate, so this isn't too bad of a card for us. Our curve is already fairly low, and this is another early game blocker. We occasionally proliferate and drain our opponent and get some life, so I'm okay with that. You enchant creature control, and you give it Toxic too. Okay, so this is another way to give something Toxic. Probably good here, and then this thing, there's the battlefield. Okay. Ravenous Necrotician could also be very good. We have some small creatures that we could sacrifice to it. We don't really have any token generation right now, but we do have some sort of small creatures that we would be happy to sacrifice to it. So I'm okay just taking this over the Necrogen. The poison plan didn't really work out, but that's okay. We still have some good creatures to work with. Churning Reservoir. Put an only counter target on token artifact or creature control. Okay, so this can generate tokens that we can sacrifice, so this might be worth taking here. Because we have ways to sacrifice tokens. We have the Ravenous Necrotician, then we have the, Annihilating Glares as well, so we can generate tokens with that, then we can sacrifice with those. Autonomous Furnace seems okay here. We can just get some extra card draw if we have already plenty of mana, so that's going to be good for us. Furnace Skull Bomb, not really the thing that we're looking for our deck. Nothing else is really calling out to me here. So I'll just go ahead and take a random Cruel Grimnarch, which I don't think I'll play. This is an artifact that we can sacrifice, so we can go ahead and take this, I suppose. Nothing really here, nothing that can help me splash for that Paladin of Predation. I guess I'll just go ahead and take a random creature here. And I'll go ahead and just take a random Engraver here. Don't think I'll play that. Alright, Shrapnel Slinger, something else that's decent to sacrifice to some of these other big cards. And then the Skull Bomb is a pretty good pickup for us here. We can get one of our big bomb creatures back into our hand, and then red land. So certainly not a bad draft. We have lots of playables. We have a couple bomb cards. We don't really have many synergies going on. We didn't really get the Toxic plan to work out the way that I was thinking that it would. Alright, so do I want to splash for that? We can play one green, then we have the dual land, and then Phyrexian Atlas, which can ramp into it and fix for green. Might be enough to just have a big fat creature that we can get out in the late game. Yeah, because I'm not going to really be playing this early, so being double green isn't the worst in that regard. We do have ways to splash for it. We have 3 sources of mana. We don't really have any other ways, but 3 might be enough to get the double green. And then if we're not able to play it, then we can play like Thrill of Possibility to discard it as well. We can also rummage with our Engravers to discard it as well if we don't have the mana for it. See, I'm okay playing the Paladin of Predation because we can discard it in 3 ways, and then we have 3 sources of green mana that we can use to play it as well. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording here. I need to go ahead and blow my nose real quick, and I will be right back. Alright, I have returned, and let's see what we want to go ahead and cut here. Wolfshock Splitter. I guess this isn't really kind of what we want in our deck, and we can't really make much use of it to sacrifice things. We could go ahead and sacrifice the 2/2 creature from it for things like the Sheldred, not the Sheldred, but the Necrotician or the Annihilating Glare, and still keep the equipment, but not sure if that's really where we want to go. We have plenty of non-creature spells to add oil counters to this, so it could come in use, but it is a lot of mana to activate the ability. But it is also a cheap 1-drop that we can sacrifice to Annihilating Glare, Necrotician as well. Yes, Furnace Strider is not really the kind of plan that we're on right now, even though we do have a couple ways to proliferate, but not that many. I mean, giving a creature haste, like by the time we get this out, There aren't many creatures that I would want to give haste if I draw them, except maybe the Necrotician. Sacrifice an artifact or a creature. We do have some small creatures to sacrifice. And then we also have a Skull Bomb we could sacrifice if we just want to draw a card instead of getting a creature back. Matter Fist we can also sacrifice to the Skitterling, but we need to get poison counters, and how can we do that? We have Death Touch, Proliferate. So that's 2 ways. Not a whole lot of not a whole lot of Toxic, and not a whole lot of Proliferate right now. 2 ways to proliferate, 1 toxic creature, 2 toxic creatures to proliferate. And then a Paladin of Predation, which is kind of toxic, but it's not coming in until the late game at best. So, yeah, maybe the Skitterling's not all that great here, as I would hope them to be with the toxic sort of plan. Because without Corrupted, there are 1/4 blockers that are not as good as our other 3 drops. So I'll cut at least 1. Because we don't have much Proliferate, we don't have much Toxic. We do have that, what is it? I think, did we end up with that, what is it? An enchantment that gives something toxic something? Whisper of Ladras, no. Nyland Glare, no. Yeah, I thought that we'd ended up with, yeah, I guess we didn't end up with something that gave us Toxic or whatever. I guess it's hoping to wheel it, I guess. I think it was like a black enchantment or something like that that would give a creature Toxic. Yeah, I think I passed on it, and I was hoping for it to wheel, and I didn't take it. So, okay. That's why I don't have it. So this is decent removal. That's versatile. They can get rid of lots of things here. You can choose whichever one that you want. So they can't choose like a small creature token to sacrifice, which is quite good compared to other sacrifice type effects that you can force your opponent into. Yeah, maybe the Chittering Skitterlings just don't really do a whole lot for us here, and on the same token, we don't really have many ways to proliferate either, so the Scheming Aspirant I also think isn't very good here, so maybe those 2 cards can go because we just don't really have much use for them. In the late game, we have some big toxic creatures, but by the time that they come out, I think that the window for Chittering Skitterling value is kind of low. The only creature that we have that can get Toxic going early is the Skull Dweller. We didn't end up with like any of those 2-drop rat creatures that have Toxic. And we didn't end up with like any flying creatures that have Toxic to get that going. Through a possibility, and the Engravers I want to keep so that way I can discard the Paladin of Predation if I can't play it, as well as just having some card draw in the deck. Let's see, this is equipment cast, costs 1 less to cast. So we have some equipment. We have the Batter Fist. I suppose we could play the Full Shock Splitter if we really wanted to make it cheaper. But I don't think there's enough incentive. We don't really have any trample creatures to take advantage of an equipment that gives more power. What else do we want to get rid of? Like, we like good sack fodder in this deck. Maybe the Vindictive Flamestoker is just not good enough here. We do have some other ways to draw cards. And it is a small creature to sacrifice to some of the other, you know, removal spells or different things, or we can discard it with the other card draw that we have, but maybe Whisper of the Dross isn't good enough here because we don't really have much use for Proliferate now, so, and we have plenty of removal without it. 13 creatures is okay. We have some big creatures to get out. We have one way to ramp into them as well. So maybe the Blade Graft Aspirant isn't really that good here, even though it is better for a curve than some of these other like 2-drops and 1-drops, but we only really have one equipment in our deck right now. So 2/3/3 drop with Menace, not really looking all that great, so I think we're gonna have to get rid of it. So it's like turn 3, we have some removal that we can use with Volt Charge, and then we have other removal in the deck. Annihilating Glare can cost more mana as well. And then we can do like turn 3 Atlas, then maybe turn 5 one of these if we need to. Final Cut. Skull Bomb is good to get back one of these big fat creatures and get some value off of them. So yeah, say we go ahead and we discard the Paladin of Predation early in the match, then later on we have the fixing necessary to play it. Then we can use the Skull Bomb to get back our Paladin, and then we can play it the turn after. Seems pretty good. So, put in token artifact or creature you control. It's on another target, not a creature you control. Okay. So, like, we can make tokens with this, but we're not necessarily an oil deck. We have some oil there. And we have a little bit of oil on some of our 1-drops. Don't think that it's enough oil to really justify the reservoir. Don't think it's really going to do anything for us, so... And we don't really have a way to sacrifice artifacts without the Chittering Skitterlings in our deck to take advantage of it, so... Yep, so I'm trying to go ahead and change the name of the deck here. Let's go ahead and do just red-black. That is not how you spell red-black. Red-black. What kind of deck is this even anyway? Whose deck is it anyway? Because we don't really have an archetype here. I don't think it's going to fit in the sort of text limit, so we'll just do whose deck is it anyway. All right. So, yeah, I think maybe we can also just do that. There we go. Makes it easier to see it as eyes instead of like lowercase l's. Okay. Alright, so we don't really have any archetype going. What kinds of lands do we want? I think we want only one of these. We have 2 1-drop red creatures, but... And then we have this, which you don't want to play out turn 1. 2 red sources there. So we have 8 black, 3 green. Or I guess this technically counts as black and green, but we're gonna probably need black and red. I'm sorry, black and red to be able to get this out in the first place. So that'll be 6, 8, but there's a lot of tapped lands there. So do I want to get rid of a tapped land to make the curve a bit better as far as tapped lands? Probably. How many lands is this? That'd be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 16 lands seems good here. And then this can give extra mana to ramp into our big 7-drop if we ever get to that point. Other than that, we don't have anything higher than a 5-drop, so we can ramp and fix into this. And if we can't, then we can discard it with some of our discard effects for some card advantage and looting for better things. Yep, I mean, it's a decent deck. We have lots of removal. We have some big fat creatures to get out that can possibly win the game. If we loot with the Engraver and Thrill of Possibilities, then the Sheldred can end up doing some work for us and draining the opponent a bit more. And then this, we can sacrifice a small creature to get it onto the field. Unfortunately, we don't really have much in the way of like oil counter synergies to take advantage of the Engravers and the card draw, but at minimum, you can remove an oil counter from it twice to loot, and they can be early game blockers, so I'm okay with that. It will have to do, so I'll go ahead and get going into here, and I will see you guys for round 1. Alright, it wasn't very long waiting for my opponent. They are ready as always. So, Polinsky, let's see how we match up against each other, my man. All red spells, no red mana. This is an easy mulligan here. It would be great to have all 3 colors in the first opening hand, but not going to happen. This is much better. And I want to keep the Skull Bomb because I can do that turn 1. Having a 1-drop creature would be good too, though. Maybe Annihilating Glare is better than the Hexgold Slash because it can just destroy anything. And we can sacrifice the Flame Stoker to it. Yeah, one of the few cases where the Hexgold Slash is going to be bottomed here because the Draw Skull Bomb is probably good in the later game, and I can cycle it to draw a card. So, it will have to do. Looks like they also have a Skull Bomb as well in the same colors. Let's get the Flame Stoker out. And we have plenty of non-creature spells in hand if we don't want to sacrifice the Flame Stoker to the Annihilating Glare to give it some more oil counters. Alright, so let's go ahead and get down the Skull Bomb here, get some more oil counters. And get in for 1. So I could Annihilating Glare and sacrifice the Flame Stoker. I think I'm going to keep the Skull Bomb still. Alright, so I think we go and lead off with this. We have both of our green sources of mana that we need. I guess the question is, do we want to go ahead and Annihilating Glare now, or do we just want to go ahead and get the Phyrexian Atlas out to ramp into one of the big boys if we draw into them? I mean, I could do this and then cycle the Skull Bomb. And then just take 3 next turn. Might have to be okay with that. So we'll do another non-creature spell. No attacks. Do we want to do Annihilating Glare? If we want to do it, we probably need to do it now. I think we'll go ahead and wait on it. Taking 3 isn't the worst to deal with here. And if they put out a strong 4-drop, I'd probably rather kill that than the Vorak. We do have some creatures that can deal with the Vorak, like some 4/4 type creatures, 4/5s. Got a poison counter, okay. No blocks. So we need 7 mana, so in a couple more turns we can activate this. Or we can actually activate it, I think, in 2 turns, so I think we're going to keep it alive. Sheldred, how do you do? That is very good, but they probably have some removal. If they have green removal, I doubt that they could kill the Sheldred with green removal, but if they have black removal, then they could kill it. Yeah, they're green, black, white, but they searched up the white mana, which leads me to believe that they're splashing something in white, and that's why they searched it up. Because that's the easiest way to get your white mana out, is with the, you know, fish for mana type cards. Let's go and play this out, and then I think we just want to go ahead and play this out and drain our opponent slowly but surely. Don't know what oops means, but maybe they have removal that I'm simply unawares of. I'm not going to block with the Flame Stoker, so we're just going to get in for 1. I mean, even if they have removal for Sheldred, we can get it back with the Skull Bomb, so... And now if they do more card draw effects, they're going to be losing life out of it. So we'll slowly drain them out here if they have no removal for Sheldred. I'm assuming that they do, but if it's like an Annihilating Glare, they would have to pay a lot of mana or sacrifice their only creature to get it out. Looks like they're in a green-black Toxic Proliferate type deck, I would imagine. If they attack in here, I probably don't block, because I have to assume that they could have a combat trick like Giant Growth or some other green combat trick out there. I want to keep the Skull Bomb, because if I lose Sheldred, I want to get them back and keep draining the opponent. Because we can play a bit defensively here, and then we can Annihilating Glare this turn if we wanted to, or we can save it just to keep it around if they have a bigger threat that gets out. That does have flying, but it doesn't have toxic, so it doesn't have lifelink just yet, or death touch. And now what do we want to do? Could attack in and trade the Sheldred, then use the Skull Bomb to get it back. I mean, that's not too bad. I can also Annihilating Glare right now and just get rid of something as well. Then attack in with my Sheldred. I think we attack in and see if they want the 2-for-1 value here. Or if they want a double block here against the Sheldred with Death Touch. Even if they have a combat trick, if I deal at least 1 damage to each creature, then they're both going to die, so... let's just have 2 and 2, so... Even if they had a combat trick there, I'm pretty sure we still kill both of their creatures. And then let's go ahead and get back Sheldred here. Ooh, and you can play out a Sawblade Scamp as well to sacrifice to the Annihilating Glare. I like that. So we got some good value there. We got rid of 2 of their creatures. We got back our Sheldred. And we have enough oil counters and the Flame Stoker to be able to draw a bunch of cards and redo our hand if we want to. So that's Toxic 2, oil counters. So it's like a proliferate green black with lots of oil and toxic, I assume. So they can give something +2/+2 as a sorcery, okay. Being sorcery speed for the Predation Steward is relevant, so they can't block and use that ability to make a surprise block to kill a creature. They have 1 toxic creature, but the Sawblade Scamp does well to block that one, so I don't think we need to worry too much about that. So what I think I can do here is I can just get rid of the Predation Steward. With the Annihilating Glare, I would assume. Let's go and play this out first. I don't have any oil counters on that, so we can just go ahead and Annihilating Glare, I think. It's sorcery speed, so we have to do it now. And then we'll sacrifice... No, I don't want to target it with that. Let's go ahead and... Let's get rid of the Predation Steward. And then we'll sacrifice the Sawblade Scamp here. And then we'll keep this back. We want to activate its ability at least 1 time. So we could do like a chump block with it, and then potentially we can go ahead. So if they get Toxic 2, then they get the Corruption going. On the other hand, this thing, next turn we can sacrifice it and get a bunch of cards in our hand. So I have to assume that they have something. I mean, they could be bluffing, but with 3 cards in hand and a lot of open mana, they could have a combat trick in green. Or black. Black has a couple of them too. I think we're just going to go ahead and take this. If they have corruption value, so be it. Yeah, they clearly have something in hand here that they could use. Maybe they have something that gives minus something to make the Sheldred weaker to kill it. So I think we just want to go ahead and try and keep our Sheldred out there to keep draining them. So yeah, something for them is holding priority, so they have something in hand that they can use. And then I think we go ahead and... Is this sorcery speed? I don't believe it is. Yeah, this is instant speed effect that we can do with this. But if we do this before combat, then we could use like some removal or something like that, since we have plenty of removal in our deck to clear a path. Yeah, let's just do this now before combat. See what we draw before combat begins. Don't really need the land anyway. Oh, and I forgot we drain them as well, so drain them of enough life, and then, is this an artifact? It's not. And then let's go ahead and get in there with our attacker here. If they sacrifice a creature, they're not going to sacrifice the gladiator. I think they want to block with it. I guess we're not draining them when we draw cards, so we gain a bunch of life. So we are more likely to outlast them here, like in a racing situation. So we're not going to be able to get Sheldred back with a Nimrazer Paladin, but I think that we do kind of need to attack in here. This is instant speed, so we could do that on defense as they attack in. Yeah, I'm just going to go for the safer play. If they have a combat trick, they would use it on defense to kill Sheldred, I would think. So let's just do the safer play and get a good blocker out. And then let's just go ahead and get another creature out as well. We're not going to get the value as far as destroying like an artifact or something like that. But just getting another creature out that can block them, and we don't have to risk Sheldred, makes it better, I think. They do have Corrupted, so they can keep on getting these back from the graveyard. I think we're just going to go ahead and do the token here. Annihilating Glare is pretty good. So now I can equip the Batter Fist onto Sheldred maybe, or to the Shrapnel Slinger. Nimrazer Paladin can get back, I guess, the Flame Stoker. Maybe. Can also just Annihilating Glare and Sheldred's Edict to clear a path here so they can't use the combat trick. So that would cost 5 mana, then this is 2 mana. Yeah, I think we just do this now. And we'll pay the full cost to get rid of that one. So yeah, that's going to lose them life if they get it back to the battlefield. And then we're just going to clear the path here. Non-token creature. You have to sacrifice the other gladiator. Just going to go ahead and sacrifice that one, I suppose. Makes sense. But I can also equip this. And I still have an Nimrazer Paladin in hand, so they are on a 2-turn clock with the Sheldred out there. Nimrazer Paladin cannot get Sheldred back, but we can get some other things back to try and get in the final damage. And I think that's going to be all she wrote unless they have removal. Unless they have removal for Sheldred, I think that is all she wrote. So we play this one first to get out a creature that we can sacrifice to the Necrotician. Just want to do this pre-combat to see what they do and see if they have removal for Sheldred. It's something at instant speed that they have. I don't know if it's removal or a combat trick or what. But we get something back here. What's the battlefield looking like? A couple of creatures, no artifacts. We don't have any ways to put an oil counter on that. Non-creature spell, so we can't put an oil counter on that one, which sucks, but I mean, we could certainly draw into one and use that to kill them. But this can also just draw us cards, even if you don't have oil counters on it, so let's just get this back. And then we can reset our hand if we need to next turn. Because we have plenty of mana now, we can draw a bunch of cards, even if they have removal for Sheldred. So let's go ahead and hold. I guess we go ahead and play this out now. Even if they have a board sweeper, I think there's only a board sweeper in white. I could be wrong. There's some red stuff that can also deal damage and go wide, but not enough damage to deal with a big fat creature, so. And then let's go ahead and put this on, I guess, the Flame Stoker so that we can block the Gladiator if we need to. And then all I need to do is just keep Sheldred alive, and when they draw a card, they lose life and they lose. So. And good game. I guess for some reason they were hanging in there. Maybe they're just hoping and praying that I would make a mistake and attack in with Sheldred, and then they use a combat trick to kill them before they draw the card and die. Maybe they have a way to gain life at the last second that they're waiting for. Yep. Yeah, there's not many ways to gain life in this set from what I understand, and there's not like there's no real life gain synergies that I know of, and there's no real payoffs that give you much life gain, if at all, so once you're down to a low amount of life, it's kind of the end of the road, unless you're racing the opponent. Alright, we got win number 1 with some just bomby type cards, no real synergies, but yeah, it worked out okay there. We had to just kind of outlast the opponent with the draw steps, but hope it goes well next match, and let's get into round number 2 then. Our opponent, once again, is waiting on us. Yeah, I'd say that if the opponent's waiting on us, it's a good indication that this set is indeed a sort of aggressive, low-curve format, even though there's a bunch of bombs that are 4 drops and greater. You just can't always play them, like the Predation, Paladin of Predation, for example. We do have one source of green in our hand, though, and we have some removal. And then a 3-drop if we get some. If we draw even one swamp, we're okay with the Atlas in our hand. And then we can get out the Punisher, then maybe the Necrotician if we get some other small creature, so I'll keep this. Ideally, I would have a more aggressive start with being on the play, but if we can get Phyrexian Atlas out on turn 3, then I'd say that's still pretty good for us, so they can scry and block with that, but I'm not too concerned about that. So let's just get out the green source of mana and pass the turn. Sheldred's Edict is not going to be good against this opponent because they have just some small creatures here that they can sacrifice with the Edict if I cast it, but can't win them all. Alright, so let's get the swamp out, and yeah, next turn this is going to come out tapped, so I think I just go with the Atlas to make sure that I can get out the Necrotician next turn. Or not next turn, but the turn after that, maybe, I'm not quite sure. Depends on if I can get draw into something small here. If I draw into something small, then I can play it, then maybe Sheldred's Edict to get rid of a creature. Looks like they have something with, I guess, that holding priority, I suppose. We're both holding priority on random things that we can do. And so they're going to attack in for 2, I would think. Yep. So it's a non-creature spell, oil countery type deck. Blue-white probably has lots of artifacts and oil counter type things, I would assume, and proliferate. So I don't think that we're going to be finding our opponent has much in the way of toxic creatures. Alright, so no small creature, but I could Volt Charge the Trawler Drake and just get rid of it now, just to make sure I don't have to worry about it. And who knows, maybe next turn I can just try and draw a card with that if I need to, but I think we just do this now. And then we can go ahead and do this before the opponent makes the Trawler Drake bigger. Yeah, I think we just go ahead and do this now. Let's do it while they're tapped out on mana. They can't find a way to save it, so they have no mana to save it, no mana to counterspell or to pump it up and make it bigger. And then let's just buy ourselves some time. In a couple turns we can get out the Paladin of Predation, or if we get out a small creature, or we draw into a small creature, we can get out the Necrotician and sacrifice the small little guy. Right, so they have a bit of Toxic in this deck, and probably some Proliferate to add more poison counters. That's one of the more solid Toxic creatures if you're in like black-white Toxic. Black-white Toxic, Proliferate, and lots of removal. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to our turn now. I guess another land isn't too bad. We're one turn away from the Paladin of Predation. If I get the Furnace Punisher out first, I can block with it maybe at the very least, and then I can sacrifice it to the Necrotician to go from a 3/3 to a 6/6. Yeah, I could do this plus the Edict, maybe at instant speed. So what I think I might be able to do is, like, next turn I can attack in with the Punisher, maybe, and see if they want to trade it with it. See, I can attack in with the Punisher, and if they attack in with the Raptor now, then they can't double block it and kill it. Alright, well now they have a blocker for it. Alright, so now this is probably a good time for the Edicts, that way they can't sacrifice the Glistening Seer, so they will sacrifice a non-token creature, so they have to sacrifice one of these three things. I can get rid of one of them at the very least. And then they can attack in with the 2/2, and then next turn I can attack in maybe with the 3/3 if they want to try and double block. Okay, so my plan may have changed. The 6/7 can block pretty effectively here, at the very least, and then I can get in there. And then they can't, like, chump block with their 0/3 creature. But I think I want to keep the Punisher out there because I can sacrifice it to Necrotician, but we'll get this out. Blue-white isn't likely to have much removal, and they've already gone through a bunch of cards, so I can just kind of play defensively here. Then next turn I can attack in with the Paladin of Predation. There is some enchantment-based removal in blue and white. which they could have, but if they had it, they might have used it on the Furnace Punisher. Alright, well, we're flooding out, which is not good, but I might hold onto the land in case we get one of our discard a card, then draw a card type effects in our deck, which we have a couple of. I could also attack in with a Paladin of Predation first, but they can now double block with two of their creatures that we could only kill one of them. Yeah, I think we're going to have to just do this now and just stay back and buy some time here and hope we get some removal in hand. Annihilating Glare would be an okay draw. Can't really attack in with our 6/7 right now, so we're just going to stay back. I'll continue to add Toxic, which is not going to be good, but I think that's all we can really do right now. We don't really have any good attacks. If they attack in with the Apostle, then definitely it's going to be easier to attack into them, but and then this can drain them a bit of life, I guess. So wisely, they're keeping the, they're not so wisely, they're attacking with the Apostle. They probably want to keep that back. Because a double striking creature, because they can't, like, chump block. I mean, if they want to chump block, the Paladin is okay, but then they lose out on the double block, I would suppose. I mean, I guess they're just going to kill me anyway in the air. Maybe that's what they're banking on, but yeah, so I don't know if we have anything that can save us here. I guess that's why they attacked. Nimrazor Paladin, does that give us anything good? We get back the Furnace Punisher, and that's it. Which I guess gives us a reason to play out the lands. We have 3, 7, 8 mana. Okay, so we can play both of them, but what does that do? I mean, I suppose we could attack in just for the fun. I think we're already dead. This has double strike. I think we're dead because we don't have reach, we don't have removal, and we don't have a way to draw cards to try and find removal. So let's just attack in here, and can draw a card with this, but I'm going to attack in and see what they do. Okay, so they're going to take the toxic damage at the very least, so and then they're going to cycle that to draw another card. Yeah, if I could give this double strike at instant speed, then I could have won right there with the poison counters, but I'm not sure if there's any instant speed double strike effects. Maybe in white there's some. Don't quite remember. Let's draw a card with this and see if I find anything here for removal. Nothing. Well, it was a good effort. And I tried to hold in there, but wasn't able to do it, so now I'm just going to go ahead and GG's here. Yeah, unfortunately, we just got kind of outlasted, and they had some flying creatures to go over the top, and we didn't have any removal to deal with them, so have a lot of removal in the deck, we just didn't draw much of it in that sort of match, so let's get back in there and see if we can get back into the winning, onto the winning track there. So I'll see you guys then. Alright, here we are for round 3. Okay, so we have some card draw. So if we flood out, we could discard some cards. Atlas for some fixing to get us some green. So we have 2 red and 2 black sources of mana, and then 1 green with the Atlas, as well as some ramp with it. I think this is worth keeping. We can loot for some things that we need. Hex Gold Slash can buy us a bit of time. Shrapnel Slinger can also be situationally good here. Alright, so do you want to do Slinger or Engraver first? I think Engraver might be better. We could even just discard the Thrill of Possibility if we wanted to, so that way we at least have a creature onto the field. Skitterfang. This is an oil counter synergy and probably an artifacty type deck, maybe. Maybe lots of proliferate going on. So they can give a creature a bunch of different things there, so I think that what we do is we probably do Hex Gold Slash on it, and then we just do the card draw with the Engraver. I think I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and take care of it. And then let's go ahead and discard, I think, a swamp, probably, because we have plenty of mana right now. Alright, so we have 1 green source for the Paladin of Predation. We need another one. Otherwise, we can also just discard it if we need to. Don't know if I want to discard the Paladin of Predation just yet, but I very well could. I could also do Thrill of Possibility here, or the Engraver. Well, I don't want to tap Engraver because they can still block this 4/1. So if they attack in with the 4/1 Testament Bearer, then I can block it with the Engraver. That's also instant speed, so I can block, then tap it to loot for some cards. I think I'm probably okay with that. And then it's not an artifact for the Shrapnel Slinger, so let's just go ahead and play out the Atlas, and then we can block with the Engraver and then discard with it. No attacks. We're going to block, and then after we assign blocks, we can do the discard draw effect. Okay, let's pass the blockers here, and then now that we do this, we're going to discard a card. I think we just do the Thrill of Possibility here, just to get the free card draw going. Alright, we got the other green source. I'm glad I didn't discard the Paladin there. So we trade and get the card draw that we need. That's why I wanted to wait on the using that ability. Okay, so it looks like they are maybe in a green-black semi-mill sort of plan. Not sure if green-black mill is a thing in this format or not. I know that it was in like the Brothers War. Don't think there's any sorts of self-mill and get things back from the graveyard type synergies that go on in this format. Green-black, I think, tends to be more removal heavy, toxic, and proliferate, I think. Alright, so Sheldred is a very good draw. I guess the question is, we would have 6 mana. We'd be 1 mana short of the Paladin of Predation. Yeah, so we can get this out now to make sure that next turn it will untap, and then we can do Sheldred here. And then we can just try and drain the opponent, I would bet. And then next turn, we can attack into Sheoldred if they don't play anything too big here. Green has combat tricks, and then black has removal. The Skull Bomb can get Sheoldred back if they have removal for it. But if they have removal for Sheoldred, then it means that they aren't going to use likely removal on the Paladin when we play it, so... First Strike Death Touch is pretty bad for us. We can't attack in with Sheoldred, but... Okay, so Toxic 2... Okay, so even if we remove it, it's going to come back to the battlefield. So First Strike, Toxic, and Death Touch on the same creature is pretty bad. And then they're going to get probably Toxic and Proliferate going on us. So First Strike and Death Touch makes it kind of difficult on our Paladin to attack into them, admittedly. On the other hand, that kind of does mean that they have to play defensively with Glissa, because if I hit in twice with the Paladin, then they're kind of donezo. So if I find removal for Glissa that's instant speed, then I could... Even sorcery speed might work, but... Return to the battlefield under your control. I'm not sure if it is tapped or not. And none of those are artifacts. Yeah, I think I'm just going to get the Paladin out now. Do it while we can. And then we're just going to kind of hold back here. If they attack in with Glissa, then we can attack into them. But it looks like they're just going to kind of go for the Corrupted plan and bide their own time. And then sacrifice the Siphoner. Oh, I guess they don't have to because they have the Corrupted going. None of those are artifacts, so we don't really have anything to do with the Shrapnel Slingers. I guess we don't really want to sacrifice any creatures anyway for those. I mean, they can at the very least block in some capacity. Having First Strike and Death Touch is kind of bad for us, so... That Glissa is going to be a big problem if we don't draw removal, so let's just go ahead and... I don't know if they're going to have any major artifacts that they can play in green and black. Maybe they have a Skull Bomb of some kind, but... I don't want to be sacrificing any of my creatures, so... And then I guess we'll hold up the land. And then we can't really attack in. Basically due to the fact that Glissa having First Strike Death Touch, we can't attack into them, so... So they're going to continue with their Toxic plan. They probably have Proliferate in here somewhere as well. So Sheoldred can block the Paladin. Our own Paladin can also block their Paladin, and there's the Bolt Charge we're looking for. Unfortunately, the removal came a bit late. If I could have done that a couple turns earlier and gotten in with Sheoldred and the Paladin, then they would be looking pretty bad, but... So if I get rid of Glissa now, I think they're just going to go ahead and do Necrogen Communion or something with that and get it back. Void Charge is instant speed, so I think we just got to go ahead and bide our time, I think. Maybe we just have to try and rely on draining them out. Yeah. I think we just gotta kind of hold back here. And then we have to try and drain them out before they kill us with toxic, basically. Let's see what they choose to do. So they're going to do that. Just going to do the usual thing here. Not much else I think I can do. If they have a combat trick, then I can just do Volt Charge to make sure I could kill the Paladin, basically. So do I do Volt Charge now and kill the Paladin? That might actually be better because I can still chump block the Glissa, basically. So let's just get rid of the Paladin now while we can. And they're out of cards in hand to do anything. And then submit 0. So yeah, getting rid of their Paladin means that our own Paladin can block their Necrotician if they want to try and get in with anything. So they're going to go for the, I assume, killing me with toxic poison counters. They don't have any equipment. So I have ways to block the creatures that they have. If I kill the Glissa, they're just going to come back and do the thing. Maybe killing the Siphoner might almost be better, but because if they have a way to proliferate, then the Siphoner is probably just going to kill us. Yeah, let's just go ahead and... I guess we'll wait on the Molten Rebuke. And see if there's anything else we might want to do with that a bit later. So I assume they just attack in with the Siphoner again. I don't know if they want to attack in with anything else. So it basically matters, do they have anything that can proliferate? Because otherwise they could beat me to the punch as far as killing me before I kill them. Scamp can get some extra damage on them, but... So if I play the Scamp first, then the Rebuke, then I can get an oil counter on it. And we can possibly drain them out a bit faster that way. That's sort of like a stalled board state. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. We have enough mana to do it, so let's get the Scamp out first, then we can do Rebuke after that to kill the Siphoner since we can't really block it. I think we just go ahead and do this now while they don't have any cards in hand that could save it, I would bet. So if we do it now before they can save it, then we can buy ourselves some time, essentially. And then that's instant speed, so we don't need to activate it as a sorcery, so... So the plan right now is just to go ahead and slowly drain out their life total here. So they're on like a 3-turn clock to get toxic counters with Proliferate or another flying creature or like a 1/1 Death Toucher. Alright, so this is instant speed, so let's do this to deal a bit of damage to them. So that's one such card that can proliferate and add another poison counter to them. Or to me. Okay, so they're at a very low life total. They might have to consider attacking in soon with Glissa. I can chump block Glissa a couple of times, so I can also just outright kill her as well if I do a triple block or a double block with the Paladin and Sheldred. But I don't want Sheldred to die because that's the way that I'm going to drain them out, so... Furnace Punisher is okay-ish because it has Menace. If I want to attack in for the kill, they have to double block it. So Furnace Punisher isn't too bad here to finish them off next turn. Simply due to the nature of they have 4 creatures, and then double blocking this means that I have 2 free creatures to get in there for 4 damage at minimum. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do this. Keep the land in hand to make them think I have something. I don't really need it for anything. Most of my big mana creatures and cards are already onto the field with Sheldred and the Paladins, so I don't really need the land. So I'm just going to make them think I have something with Atlas holding priority here. And then no attacks. We're just going to hold back here, and then next turn I might attack in, since the Furnace Punisher has Menace. Not sure what they're splashing for in red. They have red mana here, so I'm not sure what they're splashing in red. Would probably need to be a very bomb card for them to splash. So if they're going to attack, they have to kind of attack now, I would think. Like, they're going to be dead in a couple turns, so like if they don't have anything, I don't know if there's any board sweeper that can save them here, so... Maybe they're banking on drawing removal next turn, and that's why they're holding back here. I don't know if there's any flash creatures in green or black that would be able to come in as a surprise blocker here. Okay, so they don't block the Punisher, they die. Do they have maybe ways to gain life? Probably not in green-black. So we attack in with everything here. They have to double block the Punisher or they die, which leaves 2 creatures to get in there. They could have like a fight spell to use with Glissa to save themselves maybe and kill one of the creatures that's unblocked. Like the Punisher maybe. There are some fight spells in green. We did pass one in the drafts. Huh. Yeah, if they have a fight spell, they get us if we attack with everything. So I think I'm just going to hold back and then rely on Sheldred to win us the game here. Because a fight spell with Glissa could kill anything that I have. Okay. Oh, they didn't have anything. I guess they were kind of bluffing and hanging in the mash to hope that maybe they draw some removal to get rid of Sheldred. So I will be happy to take the win there. It was pretty close. If they had more ways to proliferate to increase the poison counters, they would have beaten us. So close match. Very close. I think it was the right thing to do to use removal to get rid of their flying toxic creature. Otherwise, that might have won them the game. So... Kappatek Record, the Ninja Turtle card from the Kamigawa set. Maybe one of these days I'll play like a Ninja Turtles type deck with black, blue, splashing green ninjas with the Kappatek Records. So let's get in here for our next match, and I will... Well, what do you know? Our opponent is right there around the corner, and we are going to get right into it. So another match, another game, another opponent. So, this is a bad hand. We have no early plays, no red mana. Definitely a mulligan, and no ways to discard the Paladin with card draw. So let's mull this. This is definitely much better. Turn 1 Skull Dweller. maybe a turn 2 Flamestoker plus Skull Bomb to get it an oil counter early, then turn 3 Atlas to ramp into something later. I guess the question is, what land do we want to get rid of? It might be the black... I mean, it might be the Cliffs, but then again, I can't really get the Flamestoker out, so I have to kind of decide what do I want to get rid of here. Maybe the Atlas? It is one of the sources of green mana, and we kind of need it. Maybe I can just get rid of the Skull Bomb, and I can just play the Atlas after playing the Flamestoker. Yeah, I guess that might be the best play here. I think we want to keep all of our lands to at least have 3 lands to get out the Atlas to get the mana that we need for double black or for the Paladin. I guess technically we have double black here, but it's nice to just have double black, say, for the Necro Titan in case I do something else on turn 3. So let's put out the Skull Dweller. The next turn we can put out the Cliffs and then play the Flamestoker. Two 1 lifelink, and it can get pumped up by artifacts. Okay. So I think we might just attack in with the Skull Dweller first and see if they block with it. I could attack in with the Scamp, but I want to put a bunch of oil counters on it with some of the non-creature spells that I have, so let's see if they trade here. They don't? Okay. That's okay with me, I suppose. And then I think... I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess we'll get out the Slopblade Scamp, and so that way it's 1 extra turn, where if they have removal, they might use it on the Skull Dweller instead of the Flamestoker. Yeah, Flamestoker is still... I think it's still good, even in a non-oil deck, because you can proliferate to add oil counters. And if you have a bunch of mana, they can still do this for like 4 or 5 mana, and it's still a good ability, so... Alright, so I think we play out... I think we do the Atlas first, then the Atlas can play out the Flamestoker. On the other hand, we get 1 less oil counter from it that way if we play this out second. Yeah, I think the oil counters may be more important here. We'll just get that out. The next turn we can Necro Titan maybe with the Scobblade Scamp or something else, so... So I think we can't do Atlas plus the Necro Titan next turn, so I'm not sure if we're going to get the Slobblade Scamp value unless we draw, like... I don't know what we can draw to get value off of that. But, let's see. 3/3 artifact token, being end step. Okay, so they entered with a bunch of tokens here. So I'm going to get rid of this thing. So that way we can't keep growing it. And then let's go ahead and play out the red land. And then I guess we can attack in with both of these first, then play the Necro Titan. Well, I guess we attack in with a Scamp. And if they want to trade their 1/1 rare for it, then I'm okay with it. And we get a Necro Titan and sacrifice the Scamp. Then next turn we can Atlas and hopefully draw into something good. If we draw into a land that is definitely not good, we have all the mana that we kind of need except for the Paladin that needs 7, but Yeah, that's definitely not good. So, what do? We can attack into the 6/6. They can double block and kill it. Because this thing has the pump effect there. So let's go ahead and just play non-creature spell. And then next turn we can do the card draw effect of Vindictive Flamestoker to try and find something. Because we can do that for 6 mana, and we have 6 mana right now, so I think that's what we got to do with it. I can do it at instant speed and chump block against the 4/4 Vigilance creature, but not sure if I want to wait that long for it. I mean, I suppose if I use all of my mana on this, then I can't really cast anything anyway on the same turn that I sacrifice it, so maybe I just wait for a while to do that. Okay, so they have any good artifacts out? That's not an artifact. These are technically artifacts. And then that's a wizard. I guess this is an artifact I can get rid of. But do I want to sacrifice the Flamestoker for that? That is the question. I don't think that I do. I think I'd rather draw the cards. Yeah, so I think I just play this out so I don't discard it. I'm okay just discarding the Shrapnel Slinger. And just playing defense and then doing instant speed Flamestoker and blocking with it if they attack. Alright, well that's going to be a problem. So they're going wide with artifact tokens. I'm assuming that they attack in now since I'm at a low life total, but they don't. I thought that they would, but they're not going to. So let's just do this now then and see what we get in our hand. Hexgold Slash. Is there anything with Toxic in here that I want to kill? Yeah, I might need to just get rid of this with Hexgold Slash and get rid of it now. So that way it doesn't keep on creating tokens for them. Destroy target equipment. They don't have any equipment out, they only have artifacts, so Molten Rebuke is less good here, but I can kill the Orthodoxy Enforcer. I could also kill the Shepherd that's flying over the top. And then I can keep a land in hand so that way I can discard the Swamp to the Engraver as well. So I can go ahead and I can play out a Batter Fist and I think a Molten Rebuke here. Just depends what I want to kill. I can't block the Shepherd, so I might just kill that. Do this, and then let's go ahead and we don't want to kill any equipments right now. Let's go ahead and just take out the Shepherd. And then I can block the 3/3 with my 3/1. And then my 6/6 can block either their 4/4 creatures if they get that one out. So they're playing like a blue white artifact deck, getting a bunch of tokens and artifact synergies out, which is proving to be quite effective here, but they, I guess, are having a hard time attacking in because we have some creatures that make for effective blocks right now. This is much better now. Shrapnel Slinger is definitely quite good now that they have some artifacts for me to hit that are going to be pretty good for them. So these things can't block, but they can still double block with the 4/4 and the 3/3, so I still can't attack. So I think we can just sacrifice the token and then we can play out the Engraver, I think. And then we'll sacrifice our little token dude. And then we'll get rid of one of these big things. Then we play out the engraver. And then we can equip this. I think we'll equip it to the slinger. And then this way the slinger can block their 3/3 token if they attack with it. So we're in a bit of a stalled board state right now. We don't really have any ways to get in there just yet until we draw some removal. And we are going to definitely need some removal now that they have that on the field. So they still can't really attack in effectively. I mean, they could attack in, but they're just going to kind of play it safe here and then wait for their sentry to get in there and kill us. Alright, well, it was removal or bust, and we didn't get any removal that we wanted, so not sure what we can do here. I could go ahead and put the Barbed Batter Fist onto my Necrotitan. But then they can double block with the 4/4 and the 1/1 to kill that. I think I'm just going to go ahead and draw cards maybe with this. Like, I need removal to kill the sentry now, so let's just do this now. Okay, well that sucks. We're flooding out when we don't want to flood out in an aggressive format, so I guess we'll just play that. Hold up priority with some of the things we have. And if we don't draw removal next turn, we are kind of dead. We are dead as a doornail if we don't get some removal next turn, so we are certainly in trouble here. And in fact, they probably just attack of everything this turn and kill us, so I think that they have us dead on board if I'm doing my math correctly. Yep. So let's go ahead and block this duder, and then we block. I suppose we get rid of him. So that would be 4. Yeah, we're pretty much dead. So GG's. Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. If we didn't draw removal for the sentry, I think we were just dead there no matter what, so yep, that's unfortunate that we flooded out, even though we had some card draw there, so it's kind of the way the format goes. If you flood, you're in a lot of trouble, unless you have like a major mana sink, so. Alright, well, let's see if we can at least get the 3 wins here and see if we can get enough gems to go ahead and have a 1500 to do another draft video at some point in the future, or the near future, I would say. Alright, well, with our sort of drafted lives on the line, we have a decent hand. We can do turn 2 Slinger, then turn 3 Atlas, then turn 4 probably Necrotitan, then turn 5 Paladin. Maybe we can get back the Shrapnel Slinger with the Paladin as well, so I think this is good enough to keep. Would be more ideal to have some 1-drops in hand, but you can't win them all. And then I can go ahead and sacrifice the Slinger to the Necrotitan, and then maybe get the Slinger back with the Paladin at some point. So I can sacrifice the Shrapnel Slinger to kill their Skull Bomb, but all I'm doing is preventing them from drawing a card. If I do that, I'm assuming. So let's just go ahead and get out the Slinger. We're not going to sacrifice it to get rid of the artifact that they have. I think it's more valuable to keep it around to get the Necrotitan out. Batter Fist isn't too bad for them, but we can still handle it with the Necrotitan and as well as Sheldred. think I want to keep the Hex Gold Slash out there for a bit longer. So let's play the Atlas, and then if they attack in, then I can use the Hex Gold Slash on their turn. I think I would just want to keep that alive for the Necro Titan. I could also just get out Sheldred and then try and drain them out next turn, starting next turn, but if they have removal, I'd rather hit them get rid of like the Necro Titan instead. Okay, well, let's go ahead and use the Hex Gold Slash then on their Deuter. Now that they don't really have any mana to do anything with. And so now it's, we could do Nimrazor Paladin to get back our creature now and make the best use of mana. But I think that Sheldred draining them out is maybe better here. But if they have removal, I'd rather have them use it on the Paladin too. I guess the best use of mana is just doing the Paladin now and then getting back our Slinger here that we can sacrifice to the Necro Titan. Excuse me, a little bit of hiccups there. So yeah, if they have removal, I'd rather them use it on the Paladin than my other two creatures I could have gotten out. And if they don't have a good blocker here, then I can just get in with a Paladin and get some Toxic in there as well. Okay, so don't have enough mana to play out everything here. Let's attack in with Paladin first and see what they do. They don't do anything, so I think we just play out Sheldred and start getting our big stuff out there now. And then we have 1 mana still left over for the Hex Gold Slash. Start draining them and just start to batter them down as much as we can. If they have removal for Sheldred, we still can get out Necro Titan soon, I would think. Not a bad card, but I don't think that they're going to poison us out before we kill them, so don't think it's going to matter all that much. It doesn't have Toxic, so the Hex Gold Slash cannot kill it, unfortunately, but alright, so I can attack in with Sheldred. They don't have any mana to be able to kill Sheldred with like a combat trick or removal or anything like that. And if they had removal, they probably would have killed it that turn instead. So I could just attack in with Paladin and Sheldred, probably, and see how they block. Then play out some dudes here. I'm assuming that they block. They're not going to block the Paladin. Okay, so now they're kind of on a 3-turn clock. And then we can play out Slinger, or I guess I can just sacrifice. Oh, never mind, they're going to just hang it up. I was thinking I could play the Batterfist and then I could sacrifice the creature with the Slinger to get rid of their equipment there to make things a bit easier. So yeah, what I was going to do there, I was going to go ahead and play out the Battered Fist first, get the creature token, sacrifice it to the Shrapnel Slinger, the creature token, and get rid of their own Battered Fist. And then that would allow me to get in a bit easier on future turns, because if they equip the Battered Fist to the Scrap Trap, then they can block Sheldred if I attack with Sheldred. So figured that would have been worth it, and then I have Hex Gold Slash out there as instant speed removal. If they play out another creature of some kind, then I can kill it, and then I can sacrifice the Slinger on the next turn to my Necro Titan. So that was kind of the plan there. I guess they were kind of screwed on their options. I don't know if they flooded out and they couldn't play much, or if they didn't have removal to deal with my creatures in black. So black is usually pretty removal heavy in this set, so I guess I just didn't have any removal in hand to deal with what I had, so it happens. We flooded out in one of our games and we lost because of it, so that could have been what happened to them, but we'll see what happens here in our next match. Match number 6, I believe. Round 6 with the heavyweights going at it. 6 games in. Okay, so we have all of our colors. We have a decent curve here. We can go Scamp into Engraver into Atlas and then turn 4 Paladin. Maybe we end up losing one of our creatures here at some point. But yeah, it's a pretty good curve out, so I'm going to keep it. So let's get this out first and play the Scamp. And then the Atlas is going to be able to give that another oil counter to deal some damage to the opponent. Okay, another black deck with a Skull Bomb. So I think we do this, and then we just play out the Engraver here. And then next turn, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but could just play the Atlas and then put the oil counter on the Scamp. I'm not sure if I want to discard anything yet to the Engraver. If they use removal on the Engraver, I guess I'm okay with that. But we have two sources of green mana for the Paladin if we end up drawing into it, so that's okay. Land isn't too bad there. So I think we go ahead and just go ahead and play the Atlas now pre-combat in case they have removal for the Scamp. In case they, for one reason or another, decide to get rid of it. Could discard the Swamp. But I think we're going to need that for some double black cards. I could have discarded a mountain instead, I suppose, but I think I need the land, and if I draw another land, then I can do the Engraver discard effect. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do the 1 damage now. And I could even discard the Scamp now with the Engraver as well. I could also just play it out again and attack in with it. Yeah, I think we just do this. Force them to just keep on doing things here. Could have discarded the Scamp, but let's just get in for some damage while we can. And then maybe if we end up getting like an Annihilating Glare, then we can sacrifice the Scamp to the Annihilating Glare for removal. Okay, so Slinger isn't terrible. They don't have the mana to cycle this in response to the Slinger. I could sacrifice the Sawblade Scamp to get rid of it. So I think we just play out the land, and then we sacrifice... Well, we can attack in with the Scamp, but then they just block it, so I don't think I want to do that. I think we just get in with the Slinger right now. And then sacrifice the Scamp, and then we get rid of their Skull Bomb. And then we play this as a blocker for their 3/2. And next turn we can play the Paladin and get back our Scamp if we want it. Maybe if we draw like... If we draw an Annihilating Glare, then the Scamp is good sack fodder for it, and we can get it back for that reason. So... And if we draw another Slinger and they play another artifact out here, then I can do something with that, maybe for some sacrifice fodder or something. It's a Corrupted flying, okay. That has Toxic 1, but I had blockers for it, so doesn't make too much difference to me. If I block with the Slinger, I can always get it back with the Paladin next turn, so... I doubt they attack in here. Like, they do get a token out of it if they trade with any of my 2 blockers here, but I think that it's better just to do this. Okay, so I can get rid of one of their creatures here, but I can also attack in with the Slinger first, then play the Paladin after combat to get it back. Which wouldn't be too bad, I think. I can also discard the Shieldred's Edict because, like, yeah, these creatures are fine to get rid of, but I can also trade as well. Let's attack in with the Slinger since either of their creatures dies in a trade with it. And I can get it back with the Paladin, so see if they want to do it. I want to keep the Skull Dweller back as a good blocker, depending on what they might have, so... And then, do I want to play out the Paladin now or not? I mean, I can get back the Scamp and have it as sack fodder. Yeah, I think that's okay. Let's do it now. We can still get back the Scamp, and it's a decent creature. I can put an oil counter on it with the Edict, so... I can also discard it with the Engraver as well. So I wonder what they do here in blue-black. Looks like they're going to have lots of proliferate type things, maybe a lot of toxic as well. It's the Atmosphere Surgeon again, so non-creature spell oil counter on it. And move an oil counter against flying. Okay. So they can give the Hive Master flying and try and fly in over the top to get in more damage. Turn target creature to its owner's hand, okay. Well, they don't have the mana to do that secondary ability right now, so... Let's see, if we attack in with the Paladin, they can double block it next turn, but we kill 2 creatures in that, and if they do that, so... Could attack in with a bunch of things this next turn. We'll see what they do with attacking first. If they attack in with the Hive Master, I don't think that I block it, because then I can just attack back at them. And I think we just discard the Scamp here. I don't think that we need it now. Alright, Furnace Punisher is a good draw, so is Anoint with Affliction. In this format, this is usually hard removal because there's such a low curve with a lot of decks, so we can get rid of the Surgeon. We can also exile the Hive Master so that they can't get the token out as well, and then we can do Anoint with Affliction after that to get rid of one of their other 2 creatures. See, I think we Anoint with Affliction on the Hive Master so they can't get the token out of it. And then we do Edict to force them to get rid of one of their other creatures here. And then we just sort of attack in. And then they don't really have any good blocks if they want to do anything here. So they can trade with the Skull Dweller or the Slinger. So it looks like they're going to take more toxic instead of damage here, so... Alright, so we clear off their board, and then we have the Punisher that can get in with Menace in a couple turns. And even if they return the Paladin back to our hand, we're going to get more value out of it, so... If they use the Skull Bomb on anything, they probably do it on the Engraver. I guess they don't have much mana, so they're kind of mana screwed right now. Obviously that's good for us, but it sucks for them, so... And then we can Molten Rebuke to get in there and destroy their 2/3 creature that they can't save with their Skull Bomb. Yeah, I think we just get rid of their creature right now and clear the path. And then have them dead on board on the next turn. I guess technically we end up doing some damage to them there with that, so I guess we win. 6 damage gets in there for just enough, so I mean, if they were kind of mana screwed, I'm not really happy about that win, but you know, they got kind of mana screwed on that one. We had some good value cards that kind of got good value off of them. The Paladin getting back creatures is just very good in this format. There's lots of 3 or lower mana cards that you can get back with it. There's just such a low curve in the format that the Paladin makes for a very good creature as like a curve topper. Alright, we're at 4 wins. We are definitely in the sort of self-sustaining territory here. Let's see if we can go ahead and make it 5 and keep the winning streak going here. So I'll see you guys then. Alright, just waiting on our opponent to show up here. There we go. Yeah, it took a couple seconds for them to load in my opponent there. I don't know if they're like lagging on their end, their internet connection or not. All black land, all red spells. Definitely a mole here. We would get ourselves killed if we kept this hand, so it's a mole for something better. This is definitely better. We have all of our 3 colors here at the very least. We do need some black mana for the Sheldred. We do have some removal here. Engraver can loot to find ourselves some black mana. And I guess we probably dump the Edict because it's still a bit situational compared to the Volt Charge, so then if we don't draw land in our 3 draw steps, then at minimum we can get out the Engraver and the Batterfist. Play this out first. That back there. Or move over there. Gonna cycle their Skull Bomb. I guess they must have drawn into that. Otherwise they probably would have played it on their first turn. Okay, so we did get the land that we needed. So I think that means that since they don't have anything on the field, I think we play the Batterfist first. And then we have Sack Fodder also for the Annihilating Glare as well. Okay, so we can attack into that, and they probably don't block, and then after combat we can Annihilating Glare to kill it. So I think that's what we do here. So I think we do this. We attack in first with the 3/1. If they trade with it, that's fine too. We get in 3 damage, and then since they're tapped out, I just want to do this now while they're tapped out and they can't do anything in response. Oh, I don't want to target that with the Annihilating Glare. I want to do that, and then I guess I can just sacrifice the Batterfist and keep the token. Still a 2/2 creature, so I'd rather just keep the creature in that case. Yeah, the order of the triggers and what it asks you to do, sometimes I just get kind of confused by the order. They should probably do the, here's the creature you want to sacrifice first, and then you can target the thing that you want to kill with it. I think that's the order it should go in, so Arena is a little bit funky with the order of the triggers sometimes. Okay, so they get out a 2/2 Vigilance. There's the battlefield, choose 1. Yeah, I guess they're going to proliferate there to get another oil counter on this thing. And then whenever, here's the power greater, toughness greater than... Okay, so they get 2 oil counters on that in the same turn, but we can go ahead and Volt Charge it and not have to worry too much about it. I think it's probably better to volt charge it now, since it's only going to get bigger. And then we can proliferate the oil counters that we have on the engraver here. Yep, let's do that. Kill it now before it gets bigger, and then this is only an into the battlefield effect. Let's see if they want to trade with our 2/2 creature here. I'm okay with it if they want to do it. Alrighty. And we'll play this out now that we have a cleared path, and I'm not going to go ahead and do the engraver yet. If I draw a land, then I'll do the engraver to try and find something. I can play out Sheldred first, then I can discard the land and draw a card to gain a little bit of life that way. Could have played out the Sheldred first, but I think that getting rid of their oil counter creature that can just pump itself up with the adaptive, evolving adaptive, is the best thing there. Okay, Annihilating Glare is okay too, because we can get rid of the Plague Nurse. I can also attack in with Skull Dweller, and if they want to trade for that, then that's also fine. So I think we attack in with Skull Dweller first and see if they want to trade with it. Since if I get more mana out, I can just hard cast the Annihilating Glare anyway. Okay. Now, do I want to do Annihilating Glare, or do I want to do Sheldred? I think we do Sheldred now and start draining them out. Then if I need to discard the Annihilating Glare, then so be it, but green is not likely to have any removal that can deal with Sheldred. They can have some fight spells in green, but a 3/4 creature isn't going to be able to kill Sheldred. So yeah, they're probably thinking about what they want to do here because they don't have ways to get rid of Sheldred. So they're on like a 7-turn clock at minimum with draining them out. Plus the Skull Dweller being able to attack in is kind of problematic too for them. I could also keep the Skull Dweller back to attack or to block as well. Maybe I could even just sacrifice the Engraver as well to take care of the Annihilating Glare if I don't draw some land here. Alright, so maybe they were color screwed and getting a bunch of green mana out with no blue mana. Maybe it's like a heavy proliferate sort of deck. Maybe some toxic in there as well with proliferate, since blue does have some toxic type cards in there. Alright, so we got the land for the Annihilating Glare, that's good. So I think what I want to do here is I want to attack in. But do I want to attack in first before Annihilating Glare, since I can hardcast it now? With 1 blue mana, I don't think that they have anything that they could do to save a creature from removal. So let's just do this. Pay the 4. Get rid of their Duder with Toxic. And then let's get in there and see if they want to trade for the Skull Dweller. I doubt that they do. They probably want to keep the Plague Nurse on the field as long as they can, but they may not have the luxury of doing that with how much I'm draining them out. So even the 1 damage is going to be relevant there to with the drain effects. It puts them on a shorter clock to do something here. And if I draw a land, I can just discard it with the Engraver here, so they gain a bit of life to buy some time, but They don't get to draw the card. Attacking makes sense here since they're not going to block with it, I assume. Neither of these are artifacts, so I can discard the Shrapnel Slinger if I want to. I could also attack in again and then see what they want to do in response. I guess I'll just go ahead and draw first and see if I draw some removal here. Alright, that's some removal. I'm not sure if it's the removal that we need, but I guess we can kill the Plague Nurse with it. So they have one card in hand and 2 mana, so they could have something here. Giant Growth could get us, so let's attack in with just the 1/1 creature for now. See if they block it. Just want to do what I can to keep my Sheldred alive. And then, while they don't have much mana, let's see if we can get them to use a combat trick if they have it. They don't. Okay. So yeah, let's just get rid of their creatures, clear out their board, make it hard on them. We're going to drain them out soon enough, so... And if we draw a land, we can discard it to the Engraver. So... Yeah, I'm pretty impressed by the Engraver here. Definitely plays better than it looks. At minimum, you can loot with it twice, and then if you can proliferate, then you can do it some more. So that's quite nice. I can also discard the Thrill of Possibility here. I could also save the Thrill of Possibility for one more turn, and then discard a land next turn to draw 2 instead of just 1. But if I can draw removal, I can just kill them now. Yeah, I think I just get rid of the Thrill of Possibility here and just see if I can draw removal now or some other thing to kill them here. Right, Paladin is still a good draw. We can get back something from the graveyard. Do we have any creatures? We do have a Slinger that we can get back. So let's just attack in with the Skull Dweller again and see if they want to block it this time. If they don't block it, then they're on basically a 2-turn clock, so I think they have to block it there. Only reason I didn't get in with Sheldred is if they have a combat trick that they could play on the Troll to kill Sheldred, then I can't drain them any longer, so I just want to do this as a safer play. And I can get back... I think the Skull Dweller is going to be better because of the Death Touch aspect of it. And then, yep, they'd have nothing, and that's the game. So, yeah, I'm pretty impressed by the Engraver here. Being able to loot with it and mitigate flood has been very, very helpful. And if you have, like, even if you're not an oil counter deck, if you can proliferate, I need to pronounce that correctly. If you can proliferate in your deck, then the Engraver can just loot through your deck to try and find things that you need. And then you can mitigate flood. You can go ahead and get rid of your 1-drops to try and find something better, like removal, for example, if you need it. So, like, I'm really liking this card. It's a lot better than I initially gave it credit for. I thought it was more of like a throwaway filler-type card, but definitely a lot better than I gave it credit for. So, it's really helping us out here to mitigate flood. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the next game here, and let's see if we can go ahead and get to 6 mighty wins with this little deck that could. So, whose deck is it anyway? This deck, apparently. We're doing alright here, as long as we're not, like... As long as we're not flooding out without ways to discard cards, we're doing okay here. We're on the draw. We have a Skull Bomb that we could cycle if we wanted to, plus a Flame Stoker that we can play out as well on turn 1. This would be a risky keep because we definitely need black mana in this deck. A Skull Bomb can cycle to try and find the land if we don't draw black mana. Oh man, this is tough. Like, we have plenty of lands that are black sources of mana. Skull Bomb can draw another card to try and find us one. I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit. Let's keep this. If we draw another land and we at least get the Atlas into our hand, then that's also black mana that can be helpful. That's a terrible draw for us, unfortunately. Let's play out the Flamestoker first. This is a good toxic, pretty good toxic card. I understand why this player probably has a bunch of wins. They're in probably blue-white toxic artifacts. Right, well, the Engraver was a good draw. Now we can just discard some cards that we don't need, at the very least. Try and find some lands here. So I'm not going to attack in. I'm just going to stay back here. So next turn we can Skull Bomb and cycle it, or we can also discard maybe the Skull Dweller, since we probably don't need it in this matchup. They might just be like blue-white artifacts going wide where a Death Touch creature isn't really help there. So we could discard the Skull Dweller next turn. Yeah, any land will be good here at the very least to buy us some time. A land and then an Atlas would also be decent enough to get us our black mana. Alright, so do I want to... Well, I guess I don't really... I'm not going to be able to use the Flamestoker anytime soon, and this is toxic, so... Yeah, I need at least one mana here to get rid of the Retrofitter. Volt Charge can kill it. Okay, well that's good enough. It will have to do here. Yeah, I think we just Volt Charge and proliferate an oil counter on the Engraver here. Do it while they're tapped out and they can't do anything in response, I don't think. I guess I can gain life and do that, I suppose. Or lose life and do that. So let's go ahead and... well, I guess we're not going to do that just yet. We'll do it on our own turn so we can block this. Yeah, things are not looking good for us here. We really needed black mana to do a curve out, so it's a risky hand against probably a bad matchup for us. They have a way to give hexproof for free with the Skrelv, so that's not very good. Okay, so we're gonna probably get rolled over here, but you know, what can you do? Blue-white artifacts is a pretty strong archetype here, just going wide with artifact synergies and curving out with Dune Mover or 2-drop artifact and then 3-drop Retrofitter that turns something into a 4/4 and you attack in with it. So let's go ahead and discard... Could also just discard the Necro Titan because I'm not going to be playing it anytime soon, but if I get one black mana, I can at least play the Skull Dweller as a blocker for the 4/4. I mean, I guess the Skull Dweller I can always get back with the Nimrazer Paladin too, so I guess we'll just do the Skull Dweller here and hope for the best. Alright, we got the black mana we needed. So let's get that out there, and then it'd have to be a non-token. You can also play this and get back the Skull Dweller, but I think I'd rather get back something bigger like the Nimrazer Paladin. I can also just discard the Skull Bomb to draw a card as well, so I think we might just do Edict. Yeah, I think we do Edict, instant speed, and response to them attacking, I would think. Or in response to them playing a spell, like a creature out. I assume they probably have some artifacts to play to turn this thing into a 4/4. Okay, so let's do the Edict now, so they don't sacrifice their artifact that turns into a 4/4. So they either lose their 4/4 here, or they sacrifice one of these two other great creatures that they have. So, and because the sacrificing, hexproof isn't going to do anything for them, thankfully. So, okay, so you get a 4/4. That's fine, I suppose. Not much we can do about it. Other than Hex Gold Slash to kill a toxic creature, we don't really have anything that can deal 4 damage removal, but we do have some... I guess we do have some black removal, I guess, but not really counting on it at this point. So let's go ahead and discard the Skull Bomb here and see what we draw. Annihilating Glare. I mean, if we draw a mana, then maybe we can buy some time. Okay, so this is okay then. Yeah, I think we gotta kill the Retrofitter while they're kind of tapped out here and buy as much time as we can. Turn that back into a 2/1, and then they're kind of running out of cards here, so maybe if I'm lucky I might still be able to do something here, but nah. They get some 4/4s, they're going to deal 10 damage. So I can do Paladin as a blocker, get back a creature to maybe save myself here. Yeah, throw a possibility. We could always discard a small creature next turn, so... We're not dead yet, but we're almost dead, so... I think we'll just go with the Death Toucher here. Then we can sacrifice to the Necro Titan, potentially. Yep, and that's gonna do her. They got out an artifact, so that's the way it goes. Unctus is looks like a bomby type creature in an artifact deck, so understandable that this opponent has quite a few wins to make it this far into the drafts, so sometimes you just lose to the better deck that was able to get bomby cards in their decks. So I mean, we had some bomby cards too, but in this one we kept a risky hand. Didn't get our black mana out soon enough. The Skull Dweller could have traded off for one of their bigger creatures there if we got it out turn 1 or 2, so that's just the way she goes sometimes. It's just the way she goes. But considering the deck that we had and that the Toxic plan didn't really work out early in the draft like I was hoping it would, 5 wins is still pretty solid for this kind of deck. We just didn't have any synergies, but we got 5 wins based on having lots of removal and the strength of a couple of individual cards and draining them out with their life total. So I am pretty happy about that, to be honest, considering how the draft went. So let's open up some packs here and see what we opened up. Try and open that one. There we go. Phyrexian Arena. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So this is kind of like you get card advantage for free every turn, but you put yourself on a clock to try and kill the opponent. So you probably only want to do this if you can go wide with token generation, or if you can get like flying creatures over the top. Maybe some big creatures can also get through your opponent as well to try and kill them before you drain yourself out, since life gain isn't much of a thing in this format. In like a black-white cleric deck, this would probably go pretty well and constructed, because you can gain yourself a lot of life to offset the life loss each turn. So I could take this. Red-black could also be a way to play this, since you can do There's that 4 mana spell that can make it to where opponent's creatures can't block, so you can just get a bunch of card advantage, get a bunch of creatures onto the field, and then go past all their blockers for the win before you drain yourself out. Vat Emergence, this is pretty good to get a bomb back to the field, and you get it onto the... Because you get it back to the battlefield, you don't have to play it from your hand as an additional cost, so that's always pretty good there, and you proliferate, so anything that's like a toxic deck could use this pretty effectively. Hunter Maze, a decent land that you can fill in to draw a card now and again. And then not much else in here. Escaped Experiment is okay if you have artifacts in blue-white, I suppose. Yeah, I guess I would probably go with Phyrexia Arena just because card draw is always good. It's a fast format, so I'm not sure if it's going to be something that wins you every game because aggressive decks can probably kill you much faster than you can get the card draw going. But if you have a couple of early blockers to preserve your life total and then just eventually overwhelm your opponent with extra cards, this could definitely win you some games. Alright, next pack here. Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. So 4/7 Vigilance, and then if Herman entering battlefield causes a trigger ability, triggers an additional time. Okay, so this is like good with like enter the battlefield effects. And there's lots of good enter the battlefield type effects, I think, in like blue-white artifacts as well. And it also hurts your opponent with into the battlefield effects not triggering for them. So yeah, that seems like a very strong card, and it's just a strong blocker as well. Red removal is not going to be able to kill this, so that's another good thing about it. Definitely worth first picking there for 5 mana. That's very, very good. Infectious Bite is some good removal that can go well in proliferating poison counters as well. Then Hive Master is pretty good in black, green, sort of toxic decks, and you can sacrifice it, or you can trade it off and then sacrifice a token for some black removal of some kind. This Skull Bomb isn't quite as good as the other Skull Bombs that are in this set, but it's still halfway decent if you're trying to kill your opponent by just going over the top of a trample creature to kill them and finish them off. Thirsting Roots is good for mana fixing as well as some proliferating of poison counters and things like that. So, and then Vraska's Fall is random removal, but it's not quite as good in this set where there's lots of creature token generation and small creatures. And then the Sheldred's Edict, which we use somewhat effectively in our draft here. It's not always going to be good because, again, when an opponent goes wide, they can sacrifice something that is basically a non-factor creature, but it is good in some situations, like when they have to choose between 2 or 3 good creatures and they can't like rely on hexproof to save them. So yeah, Elesh Norn is definitely the first pick there. It's well worth building around, and you can get lots of into the battlefield effects in this set. What is this one? Monumental Facade. So you can do oil counters with this one, and you can go ahead and kind of swap oil counters around to other things, which can be effective in several archetypes. I think that red-blue has a good amount of oil in it. Blue-green could also have some oil synergies in there, like with a 3/4 troll creature that draws you a card with oil counters on something. Tamiyo's Logbook, the card draw that's cheaper with artifacts, so blue-white artifacts could definitely use this. Retrofitter, very strong when we faced it. You can curve out with a 2-mana artifact, then you put this onto the field, and then you turn it into you turn the 2-drop or the 1-drop into a 4/4, and they attack in with it on turn 3, and you're in trouble. So probably, yeah, there's not much else in here that's of note. This thing randomly can do oil counters to scry, and then this is a random combat trick. In some cases can be good. But yeah, I'd definitely go with the Retrofitter there and try and do like a blue-white sort of artifact type deck. This seems very, very strong for that archetype, and it killed us in one of our matches this time, so definitely worth first picking, and then we can hope to wheel the logbook, since that would be great in the same deck as the retrofitter with blue-white artifacts. And then what's in this one? We have Ovika Enigma Goliath. 6/6 flying ward, 3, pay 3 lives. So I think it's like you have to pay 3 mana as well as pay 3 life to target it with anything. So along with your removal being more expensive to target it, you also have to drain yourself of life to target it with anything. So baseline very strong, and then whenever you cast it on creature spell, you create a token, or you create X tokens. Alright, well that is very, very strong. Definitely worth first picking. You would definitely need some ramp to get to it, like the atlases, the 3 mana artifact atlases to ramp into this, but that seems like it would be very, very strong if you have a removal heavy or combat trick heavy sort of deck going with lots of instants and sorceries and maybe some card draw in there as well. This could also be very good in an artifact deck because it's a non-creature spell, so as long as you just like cast out like an artifact, for example, you can create a bunch of tokens. So seems very, very strong build around. Paladin of Predation, maybe a safer pick than the Ovika, since you can reliably ramp when you're in green to get this out sooner, and then Unnatural Restoration is also good for if you have big fat creatures out that have toxic, kind of like the Paladin, because then you can get something back from your graveyard and proliferate to add another poison counter on your opponent. And then you have some random artifacts here. This seemed to play pretty well in the blue-white artifact deck. If you can keep on playing out artifacts, then you can turn this into a 4/4 pretty consistently. Then your opponent is going to be in trouble. And then this is an oil counter deck with non-creature spells, so it seems like a interesting artifact deck build around with oil counters. Bring the Ending seems like situational, maybe if you're in like blue-green or blue-black sort of poison counters and proliferate. Random vehicle that you can get in with now and again with oil counters and stuff. Then a random land that doesn't seem to do much. It's kind of like, this seems like, what is it? Evolving Wilds, I think. It seems kind of like that in this set. So yeah, I definitely take Ovika here, and I would build around that as much as I can. Just get some non-creature spells and ways to ramp into this, so that way I can get it out before I die to like an aggressive deck and buy some time, and then just win the game with tokens. And then final pack here. I guess we at least get a mythic rare wild card to add to my wild card count. So let's see. This equipment, Infested Flesh Cutter, creates a might token whenever equipped creature attacks. Okay. So this isn't a 4 Mirrodin card. This is just a standard sort of equipment card. But when you attack, you can make tokens with the creature, and then you can re-equip it and make more tokens maybe. So, and then the tokens could probably be good in like a black-white toxic deck that has black removal to where you can sacrifice the 1/1 tokens that you make. Then a good 4/4 toxic 3 creature that can proliferate when you bring it out into the battlefield. And then this is a random sort of sorcery speed combat trick that you can do to pump a creature before attacking in with something, and occasionally proliferate for, usually I would say poison counters, maybe oil counters in some cases. And Orthodoxy Enforcer seems like a artifact deck build with blue-white. We saw that in our draft here when we were playing against the blue-white opponent. This is a 4/4 Vigilance that kept on getting in there, so it was an annoying card, but 4 mana 4/4 Vigilance isn't that great, so I'm not sure if I'd want to take this in a blue-white deck unless it was like a filler card on the wheel or something. Then we have a Skull Bomb, and then the 2/2 Bonepicker Scourge that can end up getting some good abilities if you get Death Touch in early. So I would probably take the Flesh Cutter here. It's a halfway decent equipment, and making tokens is always good in this set where you have lots of ways to sacrifice creatures, and black-white sacrifice is a thing in this set, I think. All right, well, that's going to do it for today, and I thank everyone for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. We got to 5 wins, 3 losses, so 5-3 with the deck that we had. I will definitely take it. I think that it was still a fun deck. We had some good cards in there. Drain our opponents out, put them on a clock, and then get aggressive when we need to, and then get cards back from the graveyard and do some rummaging effects to draw and discard. So a lot of fun, and hope everyone else enjoyed it. And I thank everyone for watching. Hope you all have a very wonderful weekend, and as always, take care.